The dim glow of neon signs flickered through the rain-streaked windows of the Lotus diner, casting erratic shadows across the worn linoleum floors. It was a forgotten corner of Busan's sprawling port district, where the salty tang of the sea mingled with the greasy sizzle of woks from the kitchen. Truckers and late-night laborers hunched over steaming bowls of bibimbap, their conversations a low murmur drowned out by the relentless patter of rain on the metal roof. Ji-yeon wiped down the counter for the third time that shift, her apron stained with soy sauce and fatigue. At 28, she'd learned to move like a ghost in this place, efficient, invisible, just another thread in the city's underbelly. The bell above the door jingled sharply, cutting through the haze of cigarette smoke. An old man shuffled in, leaning heavily on a polished ebony cane that tapped rhythmically against the floor. He was impeccably dressed, despite the downpour. A tailored wool coat dripping water onto the welcome mat, silver hair slicked back under a fedora, and eyes like polished obsidian, sharp, unyielding. Ji-yeon glanced up from her notepad, noting the way the other patrons subtly shifted, their gazes darting away. Something about him commanded silence, as if the air itself grew heavier. "Table for one," he said in a voice gravelly from years of commands, not requests. His Korean carried the clipped precision of old money, laced with an accent that hinted at decades in the shadows of power. She nodded, grabbing a menu and leading him to a booth near the back, away from the draft. As he settled in, easing his frame onto the cracked vinyl seat with a faint wince, his cane clattered against the edge of the table. Ji-yeon bent to retrieve it, her fingers brushing the cool wood. "Here you go, sir. What can I get started for you?" He waved a hand dismissively, but as he reached into his coat for his wallet, something slipped free. A faded photograph, fluttering to the floor like a fallen leaf. Ji-yeon stooped again, picking it up before he could. It was a Polaroid, edges yellowed with age, showing a young woman in a simple handbook, laughing under cherry blossoms. Her heart stuttered. The face staring back was unmistakable, high cheekbones, the same gentle curve of the smile she saw in her own mirror every morning. "Sir," Ji-yeon's voice faltered, the menu forgotten in her other hand. She held out the photo, her pulse quickening. "That's my mum." The old man froze, his wallet half open on the table. The diner's hum seemed to fade, replaced by the distant rumble of cargo ships in the harbor. His eyes locked onto hers, and for a split second the mask cracked. Color drained from his weathered face, leaving him pale as the fog rolling in from the docks. His cane slipped from his grasp, thudding to the floor with a finality that echoed like a gunshot in the quiet booth. Ji-yeon's mind raced. The woman in the photo was her mother, Hae-jin, captured in her early 20s, before the long nights at the factory, before the illness that had stolen her away 5 years ago. But why would this stranger carry her image? He wasn't some lost uncle. The authority in his posture, the subtle bulge of a holster beneath his coat, screamed danger. Busan's underworld was no secret here. Whispers of Korean syndicates controlling the ports, smuggling routes hidden in shipping manifests, rival factions carving up the city like a fresh kill. I must have made a mistake," he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. He extended a trembling hand for the photo, his rings glinting under the fluorescent lights, gold bands etched with symbols that looked like ancient clan crests. "No," Ji-yeon said firmly, sliding into the booth opposite him without thinking. Her shift was almost over, but curiosity and a prickling sense of unease pinned her in place. "That's her, Hae-jin Kim. She worked at the textile mill in the 90s. How do you know her?" The old man's gaze flicked to the door, where rain blurred the view of the street. Outside, sodium lamps illuminated puddles, reflecting the neon Lotus sign, and a black sedan idled at the curb. Its engine a low growl, security or watchers. He cleared his throat, composing himself with the practiced ease of someone who'd stared down worse than a nosy waitress. You look just like her. Same fire in the eyes. Ji-yeon's stomach twisted. Compliments didn't come from men like this. She'd heard stories from the diner's regulars, tales of the Iron Lotus Syndicate, a Korean mafia outfit that ruled the docks with an iron fist wrapped in velvet. No innocents harmed, they said, but debts were collected with surgical precision. Vanished shipments, burned warehouses, bodies fished from the Nakdong River. Was he one of them? The cane, the photo, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't asked to solve. "Sir, if this is some kind of joke," she started, but he cut her off with a raised palm. "Min-ho," he said simply, as if the name explained everything. "And it's no joke, Ji-yeon." Her name on his lips sent a chill down her spine. How did he know? Had he been watching her? The diner's security camera, a cheap black dome in the corner, suddenly felt too obvious, its red light blinking like an accusatory eye. Before she could press him, the bell jingled again. Two men in dark suits entered, shaking off raincoats that hid the outlines of shoulder holsters. They scanned the room with the casual vigilance of guards on rotation, nodding subtly to Min-ho before taking seats at the counter. Ji-yeon's instinct screamed to walk away, but the photo burned in her hand. Her mother had never spoken of connections like this, only vague warnings about the port's shadows, debts from her youth that she'd buried deep. Min-ho leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried the weight of secrets. "Your mother saved my life once. A long time ago, in a warehouse by the river. She pulled me from the water after a deal went south. I've carried that debt ever since." His eyes softened, but the pallor lingered, a crack in the facade. "And now, it seems, fate has brought her daughter to collect." Ji-yeon's breath caught. Saved his life. The river, churning, unforgiving, a graveyard for the syndicate's failures. Was this man the reason her mother had always seemed haunted, glancing over her shoulder during family dinners? The sedan outside revved its engine, headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. One of the suits at the counter glanced her way, his hand resting near his pocket. What had her mother hidden? And why did this old mafia boss look like he'd seen a ghost, one that might drag them both under? The rain had thickened into sheets that hammered the diner's roof like impatient fists, turning the streets of Busan's port into a slick maze of reflections and shadows. Ji-yeon sat rigid in the booth, the faded Polaroid clutched between her fingers, its edges digging into her palm. Min-ho's revelation hung in the air like the acrid scent of overbrewed coffee from the pot behind the counter. Saved his life. Her mother, the quiet woman who'd sewn uniforms by lamplight and hummed old folk songs while stirring jjigae, entangled with a man who reeked of the syndicate's iron grip. It didn't fit, yet the photo, undeniable, intimate, tugged at threads she'd long ignored. Min-ho's guards at the counter nursed their coffees without a word, their postures too still, eyes flicking to the door every few seconds. One adjusted his cuff, revealing a tattoo snaking up his wrist. A lotus in bloom, thorns hidden in the petals. Iron Lotus. The name slithered through Ji-yeon's mind, pieced from overheard whispers at the diner. Syndicate enforcers who controlled the shipping lanes, their influence woven into every manifest leaving the docks. No sloppy hits, no civilian fallout, just quiet pressures. A rival's truck accidentally plunging into the Nakdong, a debtor's warehouse going up in unexplained flames. Her pulse thrummed against her temples. If Min-ho was their boss, this booth had become a confessional booth in hell. "I need to know more," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Gratitude? No. Moral duty?" Closer. But it was the gnawing void of her mother's unspoken past that pinned her here. Ye-jin had died with secrets locked away, her final days spent staring at the river from their cramped apartment window, as if expecting something to surface. Financial need flickered too. Bills stacked on the kitchen table, her father's gambling debts a shadow that never lifted. But mostly, it was the pallor on Minho's face, the way his eyes darted like a man cornered by ghosts. If she saved you, why the photo? Why carry it like a talisman? Minho exhaled slowly, the lines on his face deepening under the diner's harsh fluorescence. The smell of steamed rice and fried mandu wafted from the kitchen, a mundane counterpoint to the tension coiling between them. She didn't just pull me from the water, Ji-yeon. That night in '98, a deal soured. Rival crew from Incheon ambushed our shipment. Bullets in the dark, crates splintering into the river. I took one in the shoulder, went under. Hae-jin was walking home from the mill, saw the chaos. She dragged me to shore, hid me in an old boathouse till my men found us. No questions, no reward, just decency. He paused, his gaze tracing the photo's edges. I swore a debt then, vowed to watch over her from afar. When she fell ill, I sent money through proxies, medical bills, your schooling, anonymous, always. Ji-yeon's breath hitched. The anonymous donor checks that had appeared after her mother's diagnosis, enough to cover treatments that bought a few extra months. She'd chalked it up to charity, or perhaps a kind relative she'd never met. But this? Ties to the underworld, a boss's code of repayment twisted into surveillance. She glanced at the window where the black sedan loomed, its wipers slicing rhythmically through the downpour. A faint glow from inside caught her eye. Someone in the passenger seat, phone pressed to their ear, silhouette sharp against the dashboard lights. Watching, always watching. "Why tell me now?" she pressed, sliding the photo back across the table. Her shift had ended 10 minutes ago, but the diner's owner, Mr. Park, shot her a wary look from behind the register, wiping his hands on a rag, as if eager for her to clock out. The other patrons had thinned, leaving only the guards and a lone trucker nursing a soju bottle in the corner. Minho's cane rested against the booth, its ebony shaft etched with faint Korean script, perhaps a family motto or a warning. He tapped it once, the sound muffled by the rain. Because the past doesn't stay buried. Incheon's been stirring again, sniffing old roots. I saw you here weeks ago, working this shift. The resemblance. It stirred things up. And now, with you recognizing the photo, you're in it too. Debts have a way of compounding. The bell jingled, and a gust of damp air swept in as Mr. Park called last orders. Minho's guards rose in unison, movement synchronized like a well-oiled machine. One murmured into a concealed earpiece, the static hiss barely audible over the storm. Ji-yeon felt the weight of eyes on her, the trucker's averted gaze. The camera's unblinking red light. Subtle inconsistencies prickled. Minho's cover story of a business trip to Busan, mentioned offhand when he ordered, didn't match the local plates on that sedan outside. Borrowed wheels or a deliberate misdirection. "Go home, Ji-yeon," Minho said, but his tone brooked no argument. "I'll have my men ensure you get there safe. Think on it. Tomorrow, noon, meet me at the Seaside Pavilion. Private room, no strings, just answers." He stood with effort, reclaiming his cane, but not before pressing a card into her hand. Thick stock, embossed with a lotus emblem, no name, just a number. His rings clinked softly, cold against her skin. She nodded, numb, as he shuffled toward the door. The guards flanked him, lingering to drop a stack of bills on the counter. Far too much for 2 bowls of ramyeon. Mr. Park's eyes widened, but he said nothing. Ji-yeon grabbed her coat from the hook, the fabric heavy with the night's chill, and stepped into the storm. The rain soaked her instantly, the metallic tang of wet asphalt mixing with the distant brine of the harbor. Her apartment was a 10-minute walk, past flickering street lamps and shuttered warehouses, where cranes groaned like weary giants. Halfway there, unease bloomed into certainty. Footsteps splashed behind her, not overt, but rhythmic, matching her pace. She quickened, ducking under an awning near the fish market, the stench of gutted cod sharp in the air. A glance over her shoulder revealed nothing but puddles and shadows. Yet the prickle on her neck persisted. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from an unknown number. Eyes on you. Sedan tails at 2 blocks. Change route. Heart pounding, she veered left toward the narrower alleys by the docks, where sodium lights buzzed overhead, casting elongated shadows on graffiti-tagged walls. The river's murmur grew louder, a black ribbon under the bridges, whispering of submerged secrets. Was this protection, or the first thread of a noose? The card burned in her pocket. Noon tomorrow. Answers, or a deeper plunge? As she reached her building's flickering entry light, an engine rumbled nearby, not the sedan, but something heavier idling in the cut-through. Who had sent the text? And if Minho's debt was real, what rival shadows had her mother's ghost just awakened? Ji-yeon bolted the door to her cramped apartment, the lock clicking with a finality that did little to ease the knot in her chest. The space was a sanctuary of sorts. Faded wallpaper peeling at the edges, a single bulb casting warm light over a kitchenette cluttered with takeout containers and her mother's old teapot. The rain lashed the window panes, blurring the view of the alley below, where sodium lamps hummed like distant generators. She peeled off her soaked coat, the fabric slapping wetly against the floor, and sank onto the threadbare couch. Her phone lay on the coffee table, screen glowing with that anonymous text, Eyes on you, sedan tails at 2 blocks, change route. No sender, no trace, just a burner number, she guessed, the kind that vanished after one use. Who was watching her now? Minho's men, fulfilling some twisted promise of protection, or the Incheon rivals he'd mentioned, stirred by her face mirroring Hee-jin's. She scrolled through her contacts, thumb hovering over her best friend's number, but hesitated. Soo-min worked days at the hospital. Dragging her into this would only spread the shadows. Instead, Ji-yeon pulled up an old photo album on her phone, digital scans of family shots. There was her mother, younger, laughing at a seaside festival, the Nakdong River sparkling behind her. No syndicate ties in those smiles, just the quiet life of a mill worker, but the inconsistencies gnawed. Why had Hye-jin never mentioned that night? And those anonymous checks, had they come with strings, invisible surveillance woven into her family's fabric? A low rumble echoed from the street, tires crunching over gravel. She crept to the window, peering through the rain-smeared glass. The heavier vehicle from earlier idled at the alley's mouth, its headlights cutting fog like knives. Not the sedan, but a van, unmarked, plates obscured by mud. Paranoia, or a tell. Her father's old warnings flickered in her mind. He'd gambled away savings on dockside bets, owing to low-level enforcers who collected with subtle threats, repossessed cars, accidental leaks to employers. Had Minho's debt entangled them all? Sleep evaded her until dawn, the storm relenting to a drizzly grey. By 11 a.m., Ji-yeon stood before her mirror, smoothing her simple blouse and jeans. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed she was stepping into the lion's den. Curiosity burned hotter than fear. Moral duty to uncover her mother's secrets outweighed the prudence screaming to delete that card and walk away. Financial need whispered too, the stack of bills on the table, her father's rehab looming like a storm cloud. But autonomy clashed against it all. She wasn't some damsel to be protected by a Mafia code. If Minho wanted to settle a debt, he'd do it on her terms. The seaside pavilion loomed on the waterfront, a glass and steel edifice where Busan's elite dined amid panoramic views of container ships gliding like steel behemoths. Ji-yeon arrived on foot, the salty breeze off the harbour, mingling with the aroma of fresh seafood from nearby markets. Gulls wheeled overhead, their cries sharp against the lap of waves on concrete pilings. She flashed the card at the valet, who nodded without a word, directing her to a private elevator at the rear, restricted access, keycard only. As the doors slid shut, the hum of the ascent pressed against her ears, the mirrored walls reflecting her tense expression. No cameras visible, but she knew better. Hidden lenses in the seams, feeding to security feeds in some control room. The private room overlooked the docks, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the sprawl of warehouses and cranes, where workers in hard hats loaded crates under the watchful eyes of armed patrols. Syndicate muscle, blending with legitimate labor. Minho waited at a polished teak table, sans cane, his posture straighter in the daylight. A spread of banchan and grilled galbi steamed before him, the savory scent of sesame oil cutting the room's sterile chill. Two guards stood by the door, earpieces coiled like serpents, but they melted into the shadows as she entered. "Ji-yon," he greeted, gesturing to the seat opposite. His voice carried less gravel today, tempered by the pavilion's soft jazz piping from concealed speakers. "You came. Good." She sat, folding her hands to hide their slight tremble. "Answers, Minho-si. No games. Start with the truth about the checks. Were you tracking us?" He poured tea from a porcelain pot, the steam curling like harbor fog. His rings caught the light, lotus crests symbols of his clan's code, loyalty above all, innocence spared, debts eternal. Tracking, ensuring. After Hyojin died, I learned of you and your father through old contacts at the mill. The money was repayment, nothing more, but yes, eyes on the family, discreet, a driver to your school, a shadow on your father's bad nights. The syndicate's reach is long. It's how we survive rival encroachments. Ji-yon's fork paused over a piece of kimchi, the tangy bite forgotten. Subtle behavioral tells clicked, her father's lucky streaks at the tracks, always just enough to cover debts without questions. Protection or control. And now me. That text last night, yours. Minho's expression tightened, a flicker of unease crossing his features. He glanced at the window, where a freighter's horn blared, vibrating the glass. Mine, no, that's the problem. He slid a tablet across the table, its screen displaying a grainy feed. Last night's alley, her figure hurrying under the awning, the van's silhouette pulling up seconds later, time-stamped, sourced from a dockside camera, access code hacked or leaked. Inchen's probing. They know of the old debt, perhaps from a turncoat in my ranks. Your recognition at the diner. It flagged you. Surveillance logs show a burner pinged your number from their territory. North side, abandoned warehouse district. Her stomach twisted, the room's opulence suddenly claustrophobic. The elevator ride up, had it been monitored? A coded gesture from the valet, his nod too precise, like a guard rotation signal. Outside, the docks bustled. Manifests shuffling between loaders, subtle exchanges of USB drives disguised as tools. Realistic logistics. No high-tech miracles, just human networks. Error-prone and betrayable. So I'm a target because of a photo? Collateral, Minho admitted, his voice low, laced with the weight of past losses. A wife taken by rivals decades ago, shaping his restrained power. But my code holds. No innocence, will extract you. Safe house by the river tunnel, convoy at dusk. Possessiveness edged his tone, a Mafia vow clashing with her independence. Loyalty versus fear, he offered a shield, but at what autonomy's cost? Ji-yon pushed back her chair, the scrape echoing. I didn't ask for this. My ethics don't bend to your world. Yet gratitude flickered, answers filling voids, safety a tempting lure amid rising threats. As she stood, a distant siren wailed from the docks, red lights flashing on a patrol boat slicing the water. False alarm, or the first staged diversion. Minho rose too, pressing a key fob into her hand, for a nondescript sedan in the lot, plates swapped for misdirection. Dusk, east tunnel entrance. Trust the process, or the shadows claim you. His eyes held hers, a push-pull of command and plea. She nodded curtly, stepping into the elevator alone. The descent hummed, floors ticking by, but unease prickled as the doors opened to the lobby. A man in a raincoat lingered by the exit, phone to his ear, glancing her way with a behavioral tell. Too casual. Sleeve riding up to reveal a mismatched tattoo, not lotus, but a jagged wave, Incheon mark. The valet avoided her gaze, busying himself with keys. Outside, the harbour wind whipped her hair, carrying the diesel tang of idling trucks. She slipped into the sedan, engine purring to life, but as she pulled onto the coastal road, the rearview mirror betrayed a tail, a silver coupe, 2 cars back, weaving through traffic with practiced subtlety. Convoy or pursuit? The tunnel loomed ahead, its mouth a black maw under the bridge, where echoes of dripping water and distant trains promised extraction or entrapment. Who had leaked the camera feed, and would Minho's code hold when the rivals closed in? If you're enjoying this story so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The coastal road twisted like a serpent under the late afternoon sky, the sedan's tires humming over rain-slicked asphalt that gleamed like polished obsidian. Ji-yeon gripped the wheel tighter, her knuckles whitening against the leather, the key fob's weight still foreign in her pocket. The harbour sprawled to her right, a chaotic ballet of cranes swinging cargo containers like pendulums, their metallic groans mingling with the foghorn blasts from incoming freighters. Diesel fumes and the briny slap of waves against the seawall infiltrated the vents, sharpening her senses to a razor's edge. Dusk was approaching, the sun dipping low to paint the water in bruised purples and golds, but the silver coupe in her rear view refused to fade into the traffic flow. 2 cars back, then one, its tinted windows impenetrable. She'd checked the plates at the first stoplight, Busan registration, but the numbers didn't match the standard format for local rentals, too sequential, like a fleet vehicle scrubbed for anonymity. Incheon plates, swapped in a chop shop perhaps, a common syndicate trick to dodge traffic cams. Minho's warning echoed in her mind, rivals probing old routes, a turncoat leaking feeds. The tablet's grainy video replayed in her thoughts, the van in the alley, her hurried steps captured from an angle that screamed unauthorized access. Who had the code? A guard's compromised password, human error in the rotation logs. Her independence rebelled at the thought of relying on his convoy, yet fear coiled tighter, loyalty to her mother's memory, pulling her toward the tunnel's promise of extraction. The radio crackled with static, tuned to a local news station droning about port delays. Fog rolling in from the Yellow Sea, shipments stalled. Subtle cover or coincidence? Ji-yeon flicked it off, the silence amplifying the engine's growl. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Another unknown number, tunnel east entrance. Black SUV, plates ending 472, flashlights twice, no stops. Minho's doing or a lure? She deleted it without replying, autonomy a fragile shield against the encroaching web. As the bridge loomed, its concrete pillars etched with salt and graffiti, the coupe accelerated, slipping into the lane behind her with aggressive precision. No honk, no signal, just a shadow lengthening in the mirror. Heart slamming, Ji-yeon punched the accelerator, the sedan surging forward, weaving past a lumbering delivery truck belching exhaust. The tunnel mouth yawned ahead, a concrete throat lit by sodium lamps that buzzed like angry hornets, their yellow glow flickering on puddles from the morning's drizzle. Ventilation fans hummed distantly, carrying the musty scent of damp earth and motor oil even from afar. She flashed her lights as instructed, the beams cutting the gathering twilight. From the shadows near the entrance, a black SUV peeled out, its tires screeching on gravel, falling in behind her just as the coupe closed the gap. A chase? Or escort? The tunnel swallowed them whole, walls closing in with the echo of engines reverberating off tiles, slick with condensation. Ji-yeon's breath came shallow, the air growing thicker, laced with the metallic tang of rust and the faint ozone of electrical conduits overhead. No cameras visible in this older stretch, budget cuts on maintenance, she recalled from local news. But blind spots like this were syndicate favorites for ambushes, no witnesses, easy cleanup. The SUV's horn blared once, a coded signal, and its driver, a broad-shouldered man in a dark jacket, face obscured by the glare, gestured urgently through the side mirror. Slow down, speed up. Ji-yeon eased off the gas, the vehicles bunching into a tight convoy. Headlights bouncing off graffiti-scrawled walls, faded tags of waves and lotuses, territorial markers layered over years. A behavioral tell caught her eye in the mirror. The coupe's driver adjusted his cap, revealing a glint of metal at his ear. Earpiece, coordinating with spotters, rivals, confirming the tale. Tension spiked as a jolt rocked the sedan from behind, not full impact but a nudge. Deliberate, testing brakes. Ji-yeon swerved, tires squealing, the tunnel's curve forcing her toward the shoulder where debris littered the drain grates. Sparks flew as metal scraped concrete, the acrid smell of burning rubber flooding the cabin. "Damn it," she muttered, flooring it again, the engine whining in protest. The SUV surged forward, positioning itself between her and the pursuer. Its taillights flaring red like warning beacons. Gunshots, no, too risky in confined space, traces on walls for forensics. Instead, a side mirror shattered with a crack, glass shards tinkling to the road like brittle rain. Ram attempt, botched by the curve, but close. Ahead, the tunnel's midway junction branched, left to the warehouse district, right toward the river outlets. The SUV veered left, signaling her to follow, but doubt clawed at her. Minho's code, no innocence. But what if this was infiltration, a staged escort to draw her in? A distant rumble built, not thunder, but the groan of an access gate grinding open, floodlights piercing the gloom from side passages. Emergency protocols or trap. Ji-yeon's mind raced through clues, the valet's averted gaze at the pavilion. The mismatched tattoo, now this nudge, coordinated, not random road rage. Human error, perhaps a guard's bribe, but the logistics screamed organization. Spotters on the road, feed from hacked cams tying it together. She broke left with the SUV, the coupe hot on their heels. But as they burst from the tunnel into the warehouse sprawl, chaos erupted. Floodlights swept the yard, illuminating stacks of containers like monolithic tombs, their shadows dancing in the wind-whipped fog off the river. Two more syndicate vehicles, Minho's reinforcements, barreled from a side alley, boxing the coupe against a chain-link fence topped with razor wire. Engines roared, doors slamming as figures spilled out, shouts cutting the night, clipped Korean commands. The click of safeties on handguns held low, non-lethal intent clear in the code's restraint. Ji-yeon slammed to a halt behind the SUV, killing the engine, her hands trembling as she scanned for exits. The river lapped nearby, black and insistent, carrying the chill of the Nakdong's undercurrents. One of Minho's men approached her window, face scarred under the ball cap, breath fogging the glass. "Boss's orders. You're clear. Safe house that way. Follow the path." He jerked a thumb toward a gated service road where a nondescript panel van idled, its plates fresh, no doubt rotated from a legitimate fleet to evade manifests. She nodded, pulse thundering, but suspicion lingered. The tail, who? Incheon scout, low level, but they know your face now. Debt's pulling you in deeper. His eyes flicked to the scuffle behind, where the coupe's driver was zip-tied against a container, phone crushed under a boot, burner, screen cracked but displaying a partial message. Target acquired. Warehouse 7. Compromised location, the safe house ahead, or bait? Gratitude warred with fear as she climbed into the van, the door sealing with a hydraulic hiss. The driver, a silent woman with a ponytail and syndicate ink peeking from her collar, pulled out smoothly, navigating the fog-shrouded paths between warehouses, where sodium lights hummed on rusted poles, casting pools of amber on wet gravel. The air inside smelled of leather and faint gun oil, a reminder of the world swallowing her autonomy. Minho's possessiveness felt like chains now, His vow of protection clashing against her ethics, no debts binding her to shadows, yet trust flickered, born of the botched chase's cost, a dented fender, exposure risked. The safe house emerged from the mist, a low-slung bunker disguised as a maintenance shed, its windows blacked out, generators purring softly behind chain barriers. Inside, the space was Spartan. Cots, a kitchenette stocked with ramyun packets, the hum of encrypted radios on a side table. Minho waited in the dim light, Kane propped nearby, his face etched with lines of strain. "You made it," he said, voice gravelly, pouring her a cup of barley tea that steamed against the chill seeping from concrete walls. "Barely," Ji-yeon replied, sinking into a chair, the adrenaline crash leaving her hollow. "Your code almost got tested back there. Who's the leak? That message on the phone, Warehouse 7. Is this place next?" He set the cup down, rings clinking, his gaze steady but shadowed. "Work in it. Guard rotation logs show a discrepancy. Last shift one of mine logged out early. Alibi shaky. Incheon's bought loyalty before with cash or threats. But we adapt. False trails, burner relays. You're safe here till morning, then deeper cover." Possessiveness laced his words, a Mafia patriarch's vow clashing with her independence. She wouldn't trade one cage for another. Loyalty versus fear. His past loss, a family shattered by rivals, mirrored her own voids, forging an uneasy bond. Outside, the river whispered against pilings, fog thickening, but a faint engine growl pierced the night from the warehouse perimeter. Patrol, or the leak closing in? As Minho turned to check the radio feed, a static burst crackled, intercepted chatter. Urgent. Intruder at gate. Armed. The safe house lights flickered once, a blackout tease from overloaded generators. Was the extraction compromised? And who among his ranks had sold them out for the rival's gain? The safe house's concrete walls seemed to pulse with the flickering lights, the hum of the generator stuttering like a faltering heartbeat in the chill air. Ji-yeon froze in her chair, the barley tea cooling untouched in her hands, its earthy steam curling up to mingle with the faint metallic tang of the encrypted radios. Outside, the fog off the Nakdong River thickened, muffling the distant lap of water against pilings and the occasional groan of warehouse cranes settling in the night wind. Minho's face hardened, his silver hair catching the erratic glow as he snatched the radio handset, the coiled cord taut against his knuckles. "Status!" he barked into it, voice low and commanding, laced with the gravel of decades issuing orders in shadowed boardrooms and dockside negotiations. Static crackled back, then a clipped response from one of his men. "Perimeter breach, boss. Single intruder, armed with a suppressed piece. Came through the east fence, cut the chain with bolt cutters. No vehicle trail, but he's got night vision goggles. We're holding, but the fog's playing hell with visuals." Minho's eyes flicked to Ji-yeon, a flash of protectiveness crossing his features, tempered by the restraint of his code. No innocence caught in the crossfire, no reckless escalations that could draw police manifests or rival reinforcements. He set the handset down, rings clinking softly on the scarred wooden table. "Stay put. This is containment. My men rotate in pairs. If one's turned, we'll flush it out." But doubt lingered in his posture, the cane leaning against his chair like a silent sentinel, its ebony shaft etched with the lotus script that bound his legacy. Debts honored, betrayals purged. Ji-yeon's pulse thrummed in her ears, the room's Spartan confines closing in, the cot's thin mattress sagging under folded blankets. The kitchenette's single bulb swinging slightly from a draught seeping through the sealed door. Autonomy clashed against the fear knotting her gut. She wasn't built for this world of whispers and watchers, yet gratitude for the earlier extraction pulled her deeper, her mother's hidden ties forging an unwelcome bond. Containment? That sounds like a stall. If your rotation's compromised, we're sitting ducks in here. Show me the logs. Give me something real. He hesitated, then pulled a battered ledger from a drawer beneath the table, its pages filled with handwritten entries, guard shifts noted in precise Korean, timestamps aligned with access codes for the perimeter cams. Flipping to the recent entries, Minho traced a finger down the columns, the paper rasping under his touch. Last night, shift change at 2200 hours. Kim Ji-hoon logged in from the North Post, standard biometric scan, but the East Gate cam glitched at 2300, feed looping old footage. Human error, or someone fed it a false timestamp via a USB override, common enough with our outdated system, no fancy hacks needed. Ji-yeon leaned in, the scent of aged ink and damp paper sharp in her nostrils. Her eyes scanned the lines, spotting the inconsistency. Ji-hoon's sign out at 0400, but a secondary ping from his burner phone traced to an Incheon cell tower, per the ledger's notes. Behavioral tell. Too clean an alibi, perhaps bought with a rival's envelope of cash or a threat to family. Your own man? Why? Money? Or did Incheon dig up dirt on him? Minho's jaw tightened. A shadow of past losses flickering, his wife's death in a random drive-by years ago, a betrayal that had hardened his code into unyielding iron. Loyalty phrase under pressure. Ji-hoon lost his sister to a mill accident last year. Debts piled up. Incheon's good at that. Subtle offers, no guns waved, but will confirm. He keyed the radio again. Isolate the East Sector. Bring Ji-hoon in for questioning, quietly. The response came terse. On it, but boss, shots fired. Intruders pinned, but he's calling backup. 2 vans inbound from the warehouse loop, plates swapped from legit haulers. Tension ratcheted, the air growing heavier, with the diesel whisper of approaching engines filtering through the vents. Ji-yeon stood, her chair scraping back with a hollow echo. Independence surging against the pull of Minho's protective orbit. We can't wait. If this is the leak, they'll know this safe house's layout. Shipping manifests rerouted to hide it, but a turncoat sells the rest. She grabbed a heavy flashlight from the table, its beam cutting the dimness like a blade, more improvised tool than weapon. Moral duty burned. Uncovering her mother's role meant facing these shadows head-on, not cowering. Minho nodded once, reclaiming his cane with a fluid motion that belied his age, the wood tapping the floor as he moved to a concealed panel in the wall. It slid open with a soft click, revealing a narrow service tunnel, escape route carved into the bunker's foundation, lined with rusted pipes dripping condensation, the air thick with mold, and the faint brine of the river below. This way, convoys rerouted. False trail to the west docks, diversion with staged flares. But we move now. They slipped into the tunnel, the door sealing behind them with a pneumatic hiss, plunging them into near darkness, broken only by the flashlight's swing. Footsteps echoed off the damp concrete, water pooling in shallow depressions that splashed underfoot, carrying the chill seep from the Nakdong's underbelly. Minho led, his free hand brushing the wall for guidance, the cane's tap muffled to a whisper. Behind them, muffled shouts erupted from the safe house, guard rotations clashing, the pop of suppressed fire muffled by the fog outside. No graphic chaos, just the disciplined restraint of syndicate protocol. Takedowns with tasers and restraints, preserving the code even in betrayal. Ji-yeon's breath came in measured bursts, the tunnel's confines amplifying every drip and distant rumble. Possessiveness in Minho's glance back at her clashed with her resolve. He saw a debt to protect. She saw a chance to sever ties. Ethics demanding she walk away clean. Your world, it's all leaks and codes. My mother pulled you from the river, but I'm not her. I won't owe you my life. He paused at a junction, where the tunnel branched toward the river outlets, sodium lights from a grate overhead, casting striped shadows on his face. The debt's mine, Ji-yeon, but trust the process, we've survived worse. A faint vibration hummed through the floor, vans circling the perimeter, tires crunching gravel, their headlights sweeping the fog like searchlights. Intercepted radio chatter buzzed from Minho's earpiece. Ji-hoon talking. Sold the feed for his sister's medical bills. Incheon's lead van disabled. Flat from caltrops on the access road. Relief flickered. But the tunnel shook with a closer rumble. A storm drain grate rattling overhead, footsteps splashing above. Partial discovery, the intruder or a scout, flushing them out. Minho gestured right, toward the river's edge, where the tunnel ended at a concealed grate overlooking the black water. Out here! Boat waiting! Engine baffles for quiet run. They emerged into the fog-shrouded night. The river's chill wind whipping their faces, carrying the rot of submerged debris and the distant hum of patrol boats. A small motor launch bobbed against a hidden dock, its hull camouflaged with netting, propeller idling low. But as Ji-yeon stepped aboard, a silhouette detached from the mist, a figure in dark gear, pistol raised, the wave tattoo on his wrist unmistakable. Incheon enforcer, eyes cold under night vision lenses. Minho shoved her behind him, cane raised like a staff, but the shot's suppressor coughed once, grazing his shoulder in a spray of fabric and blood, non-fatal, a warning. Pain etched his face, but his code held. No retaliation that spilled innocence into the fray. The boat's driver gunned the engine, rope snapping free, but the enforcer lunged, grappling the rail. Struggle ensued, hands scrabbling, water churning below, but Ji-yeon swung the flashlight, cracking against his temple with a thud, sending him overboard into the ink-black current. The launch surged away, fog swallowing the safe house's distant lights, Minho clutching his wound as blood seeped through his coat. Victory's cost. Exposure deeper. His injury a scar on the night's ledger. Trust solidified in the shared peril, but betrayal's shadow lingered. Who else in the ranks had Ji-hoon's ear, and would the river claim more secrets before dawn? The motor launch cut through the fog like a shadow slipping between worlds, its propeller churning the Nakdong's inky surface with a muffled thrum that blended into the night's symphony of distant foghorns and lapping waves. Ji-yeon knelt beside Minho on the damp deck, the chill seeping through her jeans, carrying the river's briny rot and the faint coppery tang of his blood. He slumped against the gunwale, coat torn at the shoulder. The wound, a dark stain blooming under the sodium glow from a passing docklight. No arterial spray, just a graze, syndicate precision, meant to wound, not kill, buying time for the enforcer's backup. The driver, a stoic woman named Yoon-ji with a ponytail slicked back and eyes scanning the mist, kept the throttle steady, navigating by GPS coordinates etched into a battered tablet strapped to the console. "Pressure here," Ji-yeon said, tearing a strip from her scarf and binding his shoulder with practiced hands. Diner shifts had taught her basic first aid from spilled hot oil and knife slips, but this felt worlds away from grease burns. Minho winced, his obsidian eyes meeting hers, gratitude flickering beneath the pain. "Hold still. We're not done with your debts yet." He managed a gravelly chuckle, cut short by a hiss. Stubborn. Like her. Yejin never backed down either. The boat rocked gently as it veered toward a concealed inlet, overgrown with mangroves that scratched the hull like warning fingers. Fog muffled the world, turning the riverbanks into vague silhouettes of warehouses and rusted cranes, their outlines haunted by the hum of security generators. No pursuit visible yet, but the radio on Yoon-ji's belt crackled softly. Intercepted chatter from Incheon's frequencies, voices clipped and urgent, plotting a sweep of the outlets. They docked at a derelict boathouse, its weathered planks groaning underfoot as Yoon-ji secured the lines with quick knots. The air inside reeked of mildew and old engine oil, the space a labyrinth of tarps and forgotten nets, lit by a single lantern that swung from a beam, casting elongated shadows. Minho leaned on his cane, retrieved from the deck with a grunt, his free arm slung over Ji-yeon's shoulder for support. A reluctant intimacy born of necessity. Possessiveness shadowed his gaze, a Mafia vow to shield her clashing with her fierce autonomy. She shrugged it off gently, ethics demanding she help on her terms, not as some inherited obligation. "Upstairs," Yunji murmured, flipping a hidden switch that illuminated a narrow staircase to a loft, safe house disguised as abandoned storage. Access codes changed hourly via burner apps. The steps creaked under their weight, the wood slick with river damp, and Ji-yeon caught a whiff of stale rice from a hidden cache. The loft was sparse, a reinforced door, cots bolted to the floor, a table cluttered with encrypted phones and a fresh ledger, its pages crisp against the chaos. Min-ho eased onto a cot, peeling back the makeshift bandage to reveal the graze. Shallow but inflamed, the bullet's path a clean furrow from cheap ammo. No exotic tech, just reliable street gear. Ji-yeon rummaged through a medkit, gloving up to clean the wound with antiseptic wipes that stung the air sharp and clinical. "Talk to me, Ji-hoon, your leak. What did he sell exactly? If Incheon's this bold, it's more than a photo." Min-ho's breath steadied as she worked, his rings glinting under the lantern's flicker. He nodded to the ledger, voice low and measured, the code of his legacy threading every word, power restrained, vows to innocence like her mother unyielding, even as betrayals chipped at the edges. Ji-hoon spilled the East Tunnel route, manifests rerouted through dummy shipments, guard rotations pulled from last week's logs. Incheon's been after our port concessions, old grudge from '98, when Hae-jin pulled me out. Their boss lost a fortune in that ambush. He thinks you're the key. Leverage on me, or proof of weakness. She taped a fresh gauze pad, the adhesive pulling taut, her mind racing through clues. The enforcer's wave tattoo, mismatched with Min-ho's lotus. The partial message on the crushed burner, Warehouse 7 Durban, tying to a rival storage hub across the river. Behavioral tells piled up. Ji-hoon's shaky alibi, now this pursuit's coordination, spotters using public cell towers for pings, evading institutional trackers. No miracles, just human frailty, a desperate man's choice, ambition versus prudence fracturing loyalties. A low rumble vibrated the floorboards, engines not far off. The fog doing little to mask their growl. Yunji checked her phone, screen's glow illuminating her tense jaw. "Patrol boats inbound, boss. Incheon's staging a search. False tip to harbor police about smuggling activity here. We move in 10, convoy from the west path." Tension coiled tighter, the loft's confines amplifying every creak. The river's murmur outside turning ominous. Ji-yeon paced, independence surging against Min-ho's steady gaze. He offered protection like a gilded cage, his past loss, a son drowned in a rival hit, unspoken but etched in his restraint, mirroring her own voids, forging a pull she resisted. "Your code's noble, but it's drawing them to me. I came for answers, not a war. Let me slip out. Go back to the diner, fade into the noise." He shook his head, pushing up with a grimace, cane tapping the floor like a metronome of resolve. "Can't. They know your face now. Diner cams hacked, plates from your walk home traced via traffic feeds. Trust versus suspicion. My world's built on it, but you've earned a say." Dialogue hung tight, stakes rising in the space between words. The radio burst again. "Visual on vans, 3 circling the inlet. One's got a jammer blacking out our relays." Blackout, hit like a thief in the night. The lantern dying with a pop, plunging the loft into velvet darkness, broken only by the faint glow of Ji-yeon's phone. Heart slamming, she fumbled for the flashlight, its beam slicing the gloom to reveal Min-ho already at the door, Eunji loading a compact pistol with suppressed rounds. Non-lethal rounds cued, code intact. Outside, shouts pierced the fog, boots splashing on the dock below, the boathouse's supports shuddering as a van rammed the outer barrier, wood splintering in a staged breach, not full assault but infiltration to flush them out. "Stairs, down and left," Min-ho ordered, voice a anchor in the chaos. They descended in the flashlight's narrow cone, the air thickening with dust and the acrid bite of disturbed mold. Halfway, a figure burst through the boathouse door below, Incheon scout, silhouette hulking, flashlight sweeping wildly. Yoonji fired once, the suppressor's cough a whisper, dropping him with a taser dart that hummed against the floor. No kill, just neutralization, but the jam cut their escape. The launch's engine sputtered dead, electronics fried by the rival's device, a cheap RF jammer from black market surplus. Ji-yeon kicked open a side panel, revealing a maintenance crawlspace under the dock, tight, reeking of sludge and fish guts, pipes dripping icy water onto her neck. They crawled through, knees scraping gravel, emerging on the riverbank, where fog cloaked a backup skiff tethered to pilings, oars muffled in felt wraps. Minho boarded last, shoulder protesting, blood seeping anew as he gripped the rail. The skiff pushed off silently, current carrying them downstream, away from the boathouse's growing clamour, rival voices coordinating via walkie-talkies, their plans partial. Boss wants the girl alive. Warehouse 7 for handover. Paddles dipped shallow, the river's chill wind whipping fog across their faces, but a spotlight pierced the mist from upstream. A patrol boat, Incheon's false alarm drawing official eyes, red-blue lights pulsing like a distant heartbeat. Exposure's cost mounted, Minho's wound worsening, the syndicate's reach strained by the leak, Ji-yeon's world irrevocably tangled. Trust deepened in the shared silence, his code a shield against her fears, yet suspicion lingered. Who in the convoy waited ahead, and had Ji-hoon's betrayal seeded more turncoats in the ranks? As the skiff hugged the shadowed bank, a burner phone buzzed in Yoonji's pocket, unjammed signal message terse. Ambush at Warehouse 7 confirmed, rivals en route. Was it salvation, or the next layer of the noose tightening? If this tale already has you hooked, hit the like button. It helps us bring more hidden stories to light. The skiff glided through the Nakdong's murky embrace, oars dipping with deliberate silence, each stroke sending ripples that vanished into the enveloping fog. Ji-yeon's hands ached from gripping the rough-hewn paddle, the wood slick with river chill and her own sweat, the metallic tang of Minho's blood still clinging to her skin despite the hasty rebandaging. Yoonji steered from the stern, her silhouette sharp against the faint glow of the burner phone clutched in her fist, the screen's blue light etching worry lines on her face. Upstream, the patrol boat's spotlight swept the water like a predator's gaze, its engine a low growl that vibrated through the hull, red and blue strobes, fracturing the mist into jagged shards. No sirens yet. Incheon's false tip to the harbour police, a diversion to flush them into the open, buying time for the real hunt. Minho shifted on the bench, his shoulder wound throbbing under the fresh gauze, the pain etching deeper lines into his weathered face. He pressed a hand to it, rings cold against the heat of inflammation, his cane wedged between his knees like a talisman. Warehouse 7, he muttered, voice gravelly over the water's lap. That's their fallback, old smuggling hub, manifest scrubbed from official logs years ago. Ji-hoon's leak gave them the coordinates. He must have overheard the convoy reroute during questioning. Ji-yeon paused her paddling, the oar trailing in the current, sending a faint swirl that caught the edge of the spotlight's sweep. Her breath came in shallow bursts, the fog's damp weight settling on her like a shroud, carrying the rot of submerged crates and distant diesel from idling tugs. Autonomy burned in her chest. This wasn't her fight. Yet loyalty to the ghost of her mother's decency pulled her deeper, clashing with the fear that Minho's world would swallow her whole. And you, sending us straight into it. Your code's all about restraint, but this feels like walking into the jaws. He met her eyes, the obsidian glint softened by the shared peril, possessiveness threading his tone like a vow etched in stone. Not into it, around it. Yoonji's message is from a clean relay. We've got eyes inside their ranks now. Ji-hoon's confession bought us that. Names, plates on the vans. We skirt the warehouse district, hit the service tunnel under the East Bridge. Extraction there, quiet. But doubt flickered, a behavioral tell in the way his free hand tightened on the cane, knuckles whitening. Past losses haunted him. A syndicate war that claimed his kin, forging a code that spared innocence but demanded unyielding loyalty. Trust versus suspicion. He offered her protection as repayment, but she sensed the cage closing, her independence fraying under the weight. Yunji pocketed the phone, her voice a whisper, sharp as a blade. 2 minutes to the bank, vans are circling 7, 3 confirmed. Plates ending 891, 472, and a wild card from Incheon docks. Jammers still active, no radio out. She nodded to the shadowed shore where rusted pilings jutted like broken teeth, the fog muffling the hum of generators from the warehouse sprawl. No cameras here, overgrown blind spot, institutional neglect, leaving the underbrush a natural veil. But human error loomed, a scout's misplaced step, or a leaked access code, turning the tunnel into a trap. They beached the skiff with a soft grind on gravel, the river's chill seeping up their legs as they scrambled ashore, Minho's limp more pronounced, cane sinking into the mud. The air thickened with the scent of wet earth and creosote from nearby ties, the distant clank of container hooks echoing like chains. Ji-yeon led the way through the underbrush, flashlight dimmed to a red glow, thorns snagging her jeans as they paralleled the warehouse fence. Sodium lights buzzed overhead, casting elongated shadows that danced with the fog, but a glint caught her eye. Reflective tape on a branch, fresh at eye level, surveillance marker or litter from a worker's shift. "Stop!" Minho hissed, grabbing her arm. His grip firm but not bruising, a push-pull of command and care. "That's no accident. Incheon's pathfinders, tape for night ops, aligned with their approach vectors." He scanned the fence, spotting the subtle cut. Wire snipped low, edges curled back like a peeled fruit, no rust. Recent, deliberate. The patrol boat's lights swept closer now, engine throttling down. Voices carrying faintly, police radio chatter, probing the inlet for suspicious activity. Staged fire next? Or a botched escort drawing them in? Yunji crouched, drawing her suppressed pistol, the slide's click muffled by the fog. Tunnel entrance, 200 meters east. But if they've marked this, the access grates compromised, guard rotation bypassed with Ji-hoon's codes. Tension ratcheted, the environment turning hazardous, fog choking visibility, the river's undertow a whisper away, ready to claim a misstep. Ji-yeon's mind raced through clues, the van's plates cross-referenced in her memory from the ledger, 891 matching a rival's fleet logged in old port manifests, a discreet trail of embezzled hauls. Human conflict surged. Minho's loyalty to his code versus her fear of entanglement, ambition in the rival's grudge, clashing with prudence in their evasion. They pressed on, skirting the tape, but unease bloomed as footsteps splashed faintly from the warehouse side. Rhythmic, not random. A scout on patrol. Minho signaled a halt, cane tapping once against a root, the sound swallowed by the mist. "Diversion," he murmured. "Yunji, flare the west path, make them think we're doubling back." She nodded, slipping a small pyrotechnic from her pack. A staged burst, no fire hazard, just light and smoke to mimic a fleeing vehicle. It popped distant, orange glow piercing the fog, drawing shouts and the rev of engines shifting west. Seizing the gap, they reached the tunnel grate, its rusted bars set into a concrete embankment, vines choking the hinges. Ji-yeon pried it open with the flashlight's heft, hinges groaning like a warning, the interior a black maw reeking of stagnant water and mold. No lock, access code bypassed as feared, but inside the beam revealed fresh footprints in the silt, boot treads mismatched with syndicate issue, deeper tread, Incheon military surplus, infiltration confirmed, the rivals one step ahead, courtesy of the leak. "Go!" Minho urged, shoving her ahead. But as Yunji followed, a shadow detached from the fog behind, a van's headlights blooming suddenly, tires crunching gravel, the jammer's hum vibrating the air. The scout from earlier, radioing chords despite the diversion, shots cracked, suppressed pops, pinging off the embankment, forcing them into the tunnel's throat. Darkness swallowed them, the flashlight's red beam bouncing off dripping walls, water sheeting from cracks like icy veins. Echoes amplified the pursuit, boots splashing at the entrance, flashlights sweeping, the rivals' voices barking orders in clipped Korean. Ji-yeon ran, Min-ho close behind, his labored breaths ragged, Kane scraping the floor in staccato rhythm. The tunnel narrowed, air growing fetid with the river's breath, emergency lights flickering erratically. Power glitch from the jammer or sabotage. A side passage branched left toward the warehouse underbelly, but Min-ho veered right toward the bridge outlets. Extraction point, convoy waiting under the span, hold the line. But partial discovery hit like a gut punch. Ahead, the tunnel's end grate was ajar, chained but not locked, a burner phone discarded beside it, screen cracked but glowing with a partial map. Warehouse 7 circled, their position marked. Compromised, Yunji spun, firing back down the passage, the suppressor's cough buying seconds. But a ricochet sparked off the wall, grazing her arm in a sharp sting. No kill shots, Incheon's restraint mirroring Min-ho's code, aiming to capture, not corpse. They burst under the bridge, the river roaring below through grates, fog swirling with the wind's howl. The convoy idled there, 2 sedans, plates rotated fresh, engines purring low. But as doors flew open, figures spilled out, not all Lotus-marked, one with a wave tattoo. Infiltrator in the ranks, gun raised. Betrayal's cost, another turncoat Ji-hoon's whispers seeding deeper rot. Min-ho lunged, Kane cracking against the traitor's wrist with a snap, but pain buckled him, wound reopening in a fresh seep. Ji-yeon grabbed a loose chain from the grate, whipping it to tangle the intruder's legs, buying the loyalists time to subdue him, zip ties snapping shut, no excess violence. The sedans revved, doors slamming as they piled in, tires spinning on wet concrete peeling into the night. Victory teetered, exposure raw, Min-ho's injury worsening, the syndicate fractured by leaks. Ji-yeon's hands bloodied from the fray. As the convoy merged into the fog-shrouded roads, sirens wailed closer, police drawn by the smuggling tip, lights flashing in the mirrors. Who was the second turncoat, and had Warehouse 7's ambush just rerouted to claim them all? The convoy's sedans sliced through the fog-veiled roads like phantoms fleeing judgment, tires hissing over rain-slicked asphalt that reflected the pursuing sirens' erratic pulses. Ji-yeon huddled in the back seat of the lead vehicle, the leather creaking under her shifting weight. The air thick with the scent of wet wool from Min-ho's coat, and the faint ozone of the jammer's lingering interference. Min-ho sat beside her, shoulder bandaged anew but seeping through the hasty wrap, his face pale under the dashboard's greenish glow. Yunji drove, knuckles white on the wheel, her arms graze a thin red line ignored in the adrenaline's grip. The second sedan trailed close, headlights piercing the mist but doubt gnawed, that wave-tattooed infiltrator subdued under the bridge. Who had he signaled before the loyalists closed in? Sirens swelled behind them, harbor police drawn by Incheon's fabricated smuggling alert, their floodlights blooming like accusatory eyes in the rear view. No storm yet, but the wind howled off the river, whipping fog into eddies that choked the coastal highway. "Warehouse 7's a decoy now," Min-ho rasped, voice strained as he checked his burner phone, screen flickering from the signal jam's aftershocks. But the second leak must be higher up. Rotation logs showed 2 anomalies tonight, Ji-hoon's ping and an unsigned access to the convoy manifest. Ambitions rotting us from within. Ji-yeon's stomach twisted. The sedan's sway amplifying her nausea, the diesel tang from passing trucks infiltrating the vents. Autonomy screamed for escape. This web of betrayals wasn't her inheritance, but the push-pull of Minho's code held her. Loyalty forged in her mother's river rescue, now tested against her ethics. Financial shadows loomed too, her father's debts a quiet pressure. But trust flickered amid the chaos, born of shared glances in the tunnel's dark. Who? One of your lieutenants? If Incheon's this deep, the whole port's compromised. Shipping ledgers, guard tells, everything. Yoonji swerved around a pothole, the jolt drawing a grunt from Minho. Boss, east cut through, reroute to the old rail yard. Shorter but jammed exits if they block it. Her eyes flicked to the mirror, spotting the second sedan's hesitation, a beat too long, taillights flaring as if braking for an unseen obstacle. Behavioral tell, the driver inside, a mid-level enforcer named Tae-sung, had logged the convoy shift oddly in the ledger, alibi thin as fog, turncoat or paranoia. Minho keyed his earpiece, static hissing like river spray. Tae-sung, confirm position. Tighten up. No response. Just the crackle of interference. The trailing sedan surged, then veered sharply left, peeling toward a side road paralleling the tracks. Diversion or betrayal. Headlights from the police boats converged on the highway, engines roaring closer, their public address blaring warnings in Korean about a fugitive vessel. Staged, Incheon's ploy to force a land chase, exposing the syndicate's roots for rival exploitation. Betrayal confirmed, Minho muttered, pocketing the phone. Tae-sung's bought, Incheon's grudge runs deep. They want the port concessions, and you as bait to break my code. Pain laced his words, shoulder wound a burning reminder of costs. But his gaze on Ji-yeon softened. Possessiveness yielding to a father's resolve, legacy shaped by losses, vows to protect the innocent like Hyejin unbreaking. The lead sedan barreled into the rail yard's perimeter, chain-link fences rattling as Yoonji punched a remote code, gates grinding open on rusted tracks. The yard sprawled under sodium lamps, abandoned boxcars looming like forgotten sentinels, their metal husks dripping condensation, the air heavy with creosote and rust. Fog swirled around derelict sidings, muffling the distant wail of trains from the main line. No supernatural veil, just the environment's hazard, jammed rails from years of neglect, blind turns where watchers could lurk. They skidded to a halt behind a freight car, engines cutting to silence. The only sound, the tick of cooling metal and approaching sirens echoing off the water tower. Yoonji drew her pistol, suppressed barrel glinting. Backup teams 5 out. False trail set with Tae-sung's plates swapped onto a decoy van. But if Incheon's vans loop here... She trailed off as headlights pierced the fog from the yard's east entrance. 2 vehicles, not syndicate. Their grills low and aggressive, tires crunching gravel. Minho pushed open the door, cane in one hand, the other pressing his wound. Extraction under the tower, ladder to the overpass, then convoy pickup. Ji-yeon with me. She followed, heart pounding, the gravel biting through her shoes, fog dampening her skin like a cold sweat. The infiltrators' vans disgorged figures, 4. Shadows melting into the mist, footsteps splashing puddles, coordinated by hand signals, wave crests flashed on sleeves. No barrage, just encirclement, aiming to capture amid the police distraction. Ji-yeon sprinted beside Minho, the water tower's silhouette rising like a monolith, its ladder slick with dew. A shout cut the night. There! Followed by the soft cough of suppressed fire, bullets pinging off boxcar walls, sparks illuminating the fog in fleeting bursts. Minho stumbled, cane slipping on wet rail, but she caught his arm, hauling him up the rungs, metal clanging under their climb. Heights turned hazardous, wind gusting, fog blinding the base where Yoonji returned fire. Her shots precise, non-lethal, dropping one pursuer with a leg hit that echoed his fall. At the overpass, they crouched behind a concrete barrier. The river's roar below, mingling with siren howls, now converging on the yard. Tae-sung's betrayal revealed in full. His van, marked by the swapped plates, led the police astray on the highway. But Incheon's core team pressed, one climbing the ladder with agile menace. Climax crested, a race against the encirclement. Minho tossed a flare from his coat pocket, igniting with a hiss, its red bloom drawing the rival's eyes, while backup tires screeched into the yard from the west. Syndicate reinforcements spilled out. 6 men, loyal to the Lotus Code, subduing the climbers with tasers and grapples. No excess force, just efficient takedowns amid the chaos. Yoonji waved them over, bundling Minho and Ji-yeon into the arriving SUV, doors slamming as it peeled toward the overpass exit. The threat crystallized, real, organized, Incheon's grudge, a web of old ambushes and fresh leaks, Ji-hoon and Tae-sung's ambitions fracturing the ranks for personal gain. Debts paid, sisters saved, but at the syndicate's exposure, victory cost dearly. Minho's wound required stitches at a discreet clinic, the graze festering into a scar that mirrored his past losses. The port routes compromised, forcing a syndicate purge with institutional fallout. Arrests, masked as internal audits. Ji-yeon stared out the SUV's tinted window as dawn broke, fog lifting to reveal the river's silver thread, her hands steady but marked by the night's grit. Weeks blurred into a reflective haze. Minho's code held, protection extended without chains, anonymous funds clearing her father's debts, a quiet pledge of family woven from Hye-jin's decency. No grand wealth, just transformation, Ji-yeon's independence intact, but enriched by trust. The diner shifts now laced with purpose. Betrayals purged, loyalties reforged. The true treasure emerged, not power's spoils, but memory's anchor. Her mother's laugh in that faded photo, Minho's restrained vow, a found family outlasting the shadows. The river flowed on, secrets submerged but not forgotten, bonds enduring where empires cracked. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of loyalty, danger, and found family. See you in the next story.